Hail, hail. Good evening, folks, and welcome along to the Endless Celts Podcast. This is the Friday night show. I'm Anthony and delighted to be joined by two of the show regulars tonight for the discussion. First up, the captain of the ship, Stephen Tomlinson. How are you tonight, mate?
All good, mate. All good. I've had a good, positive week in work. Looking forward to talking things Celtic again. Obviously, a few tasty treats to get stuck into, so looking forward to it.
Absolutely, but definitely plenty to get through tonight. There's going to be new signings, new contracts, transfer rumours, allocation gate, and of course we've got a small matter of a game of football to play as well on Sunday, and as the start of the defence of our League Cup begins away to Kilmarnock. We've also got Ross Wayers tonight, our resident Michelangelo. How you doing, mate?
Michelangelo, every time that gets me. I'm doing good, mate. Another wee Friday off, and this time the Wayne was at school, so I took advantage of it, and I went out and banged out 11.5 miles on the road this morning. So I'm feeling the effects of that. No beer tonight, a wee coffee, early bed tonight.
Them 11.5 miles, that was just hitchhiking.
Superb, boys, and welcome along everybody in the comments as well. Stephen's going to be bringing up all of them from the live chat up onto the screen here, and that will hopefully help shape some of the discussion as well. Get involved, give us your thoughts, and shout out to our show sponsors, sharing that as well. A clothing range inspired by life on the terraces. Our discount code is at the bottom of the screen. Just kind of follow along and you can get a wee 10% discount. Some top clobber there. I'm away on my holidays at the start of September. Going to maybe treat myself to a couple of new bits of some new threads for that. But apart from that, we'll get wired right in to all the discussion points, and I'll come to yourself first, Stephen. We'll start off with the confirmed new signing, clocked in this week, Gustav Lagerbielke. I think that's how you pronounce it. Joined from Elfsborg, the £3 million deal. He was largely seen as the replacement for Karel Starfelt, who departed last week for Celta Vigo in Spain. I'm sure by all accounts none of us are experts on the Swedish league, but we can only go by what we've heard, and it sounds like he comes highly rated, and it's a good bit of business by the club.
Yeah, it's a good bit of proactive business, isn't it? For years and years, we kind of be reactive in these situations. So to get a replacement in, plus Narowski as well, I think that's a great bit of business by the club. I think Rodgers kind of referenced it today in his interview, saying that there's a pipeline of players, and he kind of obviously gives the final say. And Mark Lawwell and his recruitment team have a lot to kind of take credit for on that front. I think for years before, we were always on the back foot trying to chase players and replace players. And I mean, to get two centre halves in the last 2 weeks, I think it's a great bit of business. Lagerbielke, he came from Elfsborg. I think he won the league with them last season. And I think currently his team are top of the league. Obviously, they played during the summer. He's coming in fit. It's not like you have to get him up to speed. He's ready to go into the squad, ready to be in that first team. He looks quite imposing. I think he's over 6'3". He's quite wary. I mean, from obviously the highlight package you see of him on YouTube, we're all guilty of it. We go and look, and he looks a very good kind of diagonal passer of the ball. I don't know if that's something Rodgers wants to incorporate into our game, maybe to take advantage of the wingers and stuff like that, getting up the pitch quicker. Good kind of aerial presence about him, and I think I've seen some of the scouting reports in terms of stats, and he's up there in the Swedish league with like defensive headers 1, tackles 1, interceptions. So yeah, getting someone like that in, and like you said, we're not experts in the Swedish league, but we've had Lustig, we've had Mjällby, we've had Nestorovic, Erik Larsson, going back all these years. I mean, Scandinavian players from them kind of nations do us well, and I'm looking forward to seeing them in the Celtic shirt.
Yeah, I very much echo that. And Ross, like as Stephen says, it's an area of the world where we've had a lot of success in the past. I don't know if you've seen it, but the promo video was absolutely brilliant because it featured one of our heroes for years gone by, Mikael Lustig, just saying every great Celtic team needs a Swede, and he went, and he's ready for your new arrival. Certainly, as promo goes, it was right up there.
Aye, top quality. That's it. Lustig is box office. That's what he does. But in terms of the player, I mean, I've not seen a great deal of him. I'm probably learning just on what Stevens said there. I'm learning stuff about him. I've not really had time to do my homework on him, but Listen, it's another defender. It was a position where we needed to strengthen, especially off the back of Starfelt going. It'll now be interesting. Obviously, we'll touch on it a bit later, but Stephen Welsh has signed a 4-year contract, so it'll be interesting to see. Well, I mean, you would have to say at the moment, Navroki has got the jersey, but it'll be interesting to see they three sort of going at it over the next couple of months to see who can nail down the starting slot against CCV. But obviously, we're sitting here now, and CCV is injured and Welsh is injured. So that's another one I sort of jinxed, but we'll not talk about that. Listen, as I say, it's more competition in a place where we needed more competition, and I think, hi Phil, I think that what you have to say is, out with the sort of profile of the player, which we'll probably get to see more. Out with that, I think you look at it's another signing for me where it looks like, as Stephen says, proactive. It's a signing where Celtic as a club are not sitting in their hands or twiddling their thumbs anymore. They're pre-planning. They're planning ahead in the eventuality that we'll lose players, and we know we're going to lose players. But I like the way they're working now, and I don't really know how you can have too many complaints with how they're working. It's a good model. I sort of look at it as well, right? See when we were going into the 10 season, right?
Mm-hmm.
We were sitting there, right, with 3 or 4 guys who didn't actually want to be at the club. We'd promised we would let them go, and then we couldn't because of COVID and stuff like that, right? I think Celtic they've been sort of bitten then, right? And I think they've learned for that big time, and they're not going to let themselves get to a stage where players are running their contracts down. And if they want to go, Celtic are going to turn this squad around a hell of a lot more often than probably the fans would like, probably they would like, but it sort of keeps that freshness in it, and they're not going to get to that stage where they're left with 4 or 5 guys that don't want to be at the club anymore, that down tools. They don't want guys to be at the club who down tools. And the way listen, it's not always going to work, but the way they're working now, you're never going to arrive at that situation again. It's not to say that it won't ever happen again, but the way they're working, I quite like it, and it's proactive, as Stephen said.
I think if you look at it, sorry, Anthony, you kind of went back there to the 10 season, and I think Neil Lennon said it as well, and obviously he got stick for it, but he came out and kind of admitted it in the future that players didn't want to be there. They were promised they could go places, and then COVID hit, finances got hit, and there was no transfers really taking place. And I think you're right, Celtic suffered from that. Probably maybe the players, not down in twos, but it's kind of lack of enthusiasm, lack of kind of determination to keep doing the job they were doing in previous seasons, because they had their head set and going elsewhere. And very early on in Postecoglou's tenure, he referenced being aggressive in the transfer market. Don't be getting too attached to these guys because they're going to leave, and enjoy them while they're here. And I think that's the right way to go. Obviously, there a few issues need ironed out, and we're only really getting on that path, obviously, to kind of bring in them transfer profits and spend more money in that sense. But it's a great way to put it, actually, Ross, and I do agree with you in that term. We're being proactive in the market now. Do you know what I mean? Years gone by, like I said, we were reactive, and the very last day of the window, we're bringing in just random players, sometimes to replace star players who left the club. But I think Mark Lawwell and Michael Nicholson, to an extent, deserve credit for it. They're obviously sticking to this kind of model. Rodgers is comfortable within the model. And if there's a pipeline of players and we're ready and organised, then that's a great thing for the future. And then you look at Home coming in. He was in the top 20 wonder kid list. You look at Yang, he was a South Korean Young Player of the Year. All these players have great potential, and you see like other clubs taking advantage of this very early on. Casado, for example, the top example at the minute. Brighton signed them for like £1.5 million. Now they're getting over £100 million for him. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, we're not going to be in the realms of that money, but that kind of model is great, and it does have to work. I think there's going to be some times we're going to have to speculate to accumulate a bit more. I think that's fair enough to say, but I mean, Lagerbielke and Nurowski, to bring them in, 2 top-level centre halves who start in their own respective leagues, international players. I think it's a great bit of business by the club.
Yeah. I think can't say anything against that, mate. I think it's great points made by you both. And Ross, I think you're bang on in that sense. I think modern football now dictates that, not just the Saudi factor, not just the wealth of the English Premier League, but players are coming from all four corners of the globe now. And I think it's almost a foregone conclusion almost that players' heads are going to be turned a bit quicker by, we would definitely say, of course, lesser clubs in terms of stature, but just based on, the geography itself, people will see Brighton and Hove Albion as a step up now, not in terms of the size of the club, but just purely on the league that they play in. It's not something that we necessarily like, but it's just, it's just the way the world is, unfortunately. But I'll come back to you, Stephen, since you used the term, because I say we have one in the building. There is still a couple of weeks left of the transfer window, and there is obviously a little bit of a sort of chat amongst the support that we do want to see a bit more speculating to accumulating and perhaps bringing in some players that perhaps are a little bit more recognisable, at first glance, so to speak. And it wouldn't be a summertime without plenty of transfer rumours with regards to where Celtic are concerned. So thought we'd just go through them sort of one by one. We could just sort of say like what we think of the potential of the deal and kind of how realistic we think that it could happen. So I'll start with the one that's sort of been gathering quite a lot of gossip this week amongst all the usual places. Daniel Podence, Wolverhampton Wanderers player, as we know that club doesn't have their troubles to seek at the moment. There's been all range of figures getting bandied about, but I think the one that seems to be gathering stick the most is these people that seem to be in the know. And I have to say, one of these supposed in the know is a Wolves account that has about 40 followers on Twitter, and you'll know that that's not a great amount. Having said that, there is a lot of people that say that where Wolves is concerned, this account is actually normally very accurate. So, you'll know how Twitter works more than me. But as I say, there does seem to be a thing where they sense that a deal could be made at around about the £8.5 million mark, which would obviously be a huge investment, would be the second biggest outlay we've ever forked out for on a player. But of course, he is that kind of out with the sort of the model, as we say. He is sort of in his late 20s, probably wouldn't get much of a resale value on that unless he was absolutely incredible up here and worked wonders. But it definitely seems to be gathering a bit of traction. What's your thoughts on it?
Well, I mean, first of all, the Rodgers kind of squashed the rumours today, saying categorically no. But obviously, managers have to say them things to protect deals, maybe in that instance. But I know what you're saying in terms of Podence. I think for me, you mentioned the model there, but I think sometimes there has to be exceptions within that rule. So if you get an opportunity to sign a player of that quality at a little money, £8.5 million, he's been in the Portugal national team. He's over 100 appearances in the EPL. He's scored in the EPL. He's played for Olympiacos, Sporting Lisbon. So he's been about top European leagues, and he's got a pedigree about him. And if you look at it as well, we've all been crying out for the Felipe Jota replacement. And I think if you look at him and you look at the way he plays, he's off the left, he's very quick, he's direct, he's quite stocky. He reminds me a bit of Shaqiri, the Swiss international, that kind of build, the stocky build, kind of low centre of gravity. And I like what I've seen of him. I've obviously seen him playing in the Champions League and stuff, but you don't really take notice, and you don't really think Celtic's going to be linked with these players in years to come. And yeah, again, back on YouTube to see what his recent highlights are like. Obviously, there's not much. I think Wolves, I think Alistair Jack said it, FFP's killing them in terms of financial fair play. Corvo said they're in the red. So they're doing a wee bit of a fire sale at Wolves. So they might be accepting bids normally that they wouldn't take in. So £8.5 million sounds plausible. He's 27, so he's coming into the peak years. And I think you have to look at it like this as well. The exception within the rule, we need to stop looking at players as in money bags. Like, we don't need to sign every player to make money for Celtic. We can do that with younger guys, but sometimes you have to supplement the rest of the squad with a wee bit of quality here and there. And I think Podence, for me, would be a statement signing. And we were speaking about this previous weeks, Ross, Anthony as well. Me, you, and Willie, Ross, we got in a wee heated debate. It was good crack. But when I'm talking about statement signings and that kind of flair player, that kind of someone to come in and have that kind of pedigree already, it's like the guys like Podence. And again, as I said, for me, I think he would come in he would walk straight into the team. I think he'd be a first choice straight away. Obviously, a couple of weeks training on that, but the pedigree of the player, he'd be on big wages, a statement kind of transfer fee, and that would get me excited to get someone in like through the door. And not only that as well, I think he scored over 16 goals in the EPL. He has assists as well. So Scott Sinclair, case in point, he came up from the EPL, not really in favour of Aston Villa, and he'd done a fantastic job. And probably Podence comes with a better pedigree than Sinclair, if we're fair here, playing the Champions League and that. So, yeah, it's something I'd be excited about. Obviously, Roger's comments today kind of made me think, is it happening? Is it going to happen? But again, they have to protect deals if they're happening. They can't really confirm or deny. So I can kind of understand why he probably said them comments. But, yeah, Anthony, if we get a player like Podence in, wow, it'd be incredible.
Yeah, I would agree, Stephen. And what I'm going to do is actually I'm going to break it down into like sort of the more attacking options that we have, and then the sort of defensive rumours that are doing them as well. So I will come straight back to you, mate, and just obviously touch on the other one that was gathering a bit of traction as well is Newcastle United's Ryan Fraser. I know it was you guys spoke about it on Monday as well. It seems to have died down a little bit, but yeah, just sort of what would your thoughts be on that, and then I'll get Ross's thoughts on those potential two deals.
Well, I mean, if it come into the comments as well, Frank Brandon, why the hell would 28-year-old in October Podence take the hugest of pay cuts to come to Glasgow, for goodness sake, never mind us paying £9 million or thereabouts for him. There's no residual value. What I would say there, Frank, I mean, I think in our squad at the minute, you have to look at the case in point here, Joe Hart. He came from a big wage at Tottenham and he took that pay cut to come to us. Maybe these players just want to enjoy football again. Maybe Podence, there's a World Cup next year. He wants to be considered for Portugal. So there's other factors the way in. And as I said to you previously, we need to stop looking at players' resale value. We need to enjoy players coming in and stop looking at, like, can a Tate go for 50 million? Can Yang be the guy who brings in the record transfer fee? Do you know what I mean? We'll have to come away from that thought. I do get it. Obviously, I like figures myself, but enjoy the players. And if we're signing experienced international players like that, I'd be more than happy. Was it Ryan Fraser you said there?
Ryan Fraser, yep.
Yeah. Ryan Fraser, for me, it might sound a bit contradictory here, and I think Ross is going to start laughing when I say it.
I was just laughing already. I know what you're going to say.
But again, it's like Phil, I don't see the attraction for Fraser, squad player best. That's where I'm thinking with this one. He's not, for me, on the same level as opponents, the same credence as opponents. Ryan Fraser played for Bournemouth and he starred really well. I think he was up there with their record assist in EPL. He went to Newcastle, quickly fell out of favour. Questions about his attitude, questions about his application and training. Corville, you can back me up in this one because you said it back in the previous podcast. So there's a lot of question marks around him that way. Fitness issues, injuries. He's pulled up a lot of hamstrings. Can we afford to bring a guy in with a long list of injury issues on a high wage? I don't think so. He doesn't excite me, and it's not because he's Scottish, before anyone says this, or he doesn't have a fancy name. It's not that at all. It's just the player profile of him. I remember him as a young boy coming up from Aberdeen. He made the move to England, and fair enough, Aberdeen have a great track record with Calvin Ramsey, Scott McKenna. They've made them big moves and done quite well. Ryan Fraser kind of followed that, and then he's tailed off a lot. Podence was still kind of playing regularly last season, and he was a first-team starter the year before for Wolves. As I said, over 100 appearances. And I'm looking at Fraser, and I just don't think. I mean, is he better than Maeda? Is he better than Abada? No, but Podence for me, he's better than Maeda, and he's better than Abada. So it's a two different levels, in my opinion. I get the Ryan Fraser thing, but for me, it's pure lazy. It's pure lazy linking us with him because it's going to be the old loan move to buy or loan move to his contract frees up and we'll sign him on a free next year. Doesn't excite me at all, and that's one. Me personally, I think Celtics should stay away from.
Fair enough, mate. And so, Ross, going to come to yourself, mate. As I say, the potential two rumours on the more attacking sort of fronts, as I say, either side of the pitch, Podence and Fraser. I know we've obviously spoke a lot about it in the group chat. What's your own thoughts on them?
Well, start with Podence. Well, straight away, if it was a choice between Podence and Fraser, there's no question that I would take Podence first. I think Podence is a really good player for all the reasons that Stephen has stated. I think it would be a great signing. I totally agree with Stephen in terms on that the sort of resale value. We have signed plenty of players this summer window who could and will have a resale value. But I fully agree with Stephen that, and I expected Celtic to do this before the window was opened. I expected them to buy bits of quality to add to the first 11. I've said it, but I'm also not really, I'm not upset with the business they've done so far. But I agree, Podence would be that type of player at 8.5 million. It's a deal we could afford. I don't know what his wages would be, but in terms of his a transfer fee, that's a deal we can afford. If we can make that happen, I think a guy with that much EPL experience, he's, as Stephen said, he's been in the Portugal national team. I think that's the profile of player that you're signing for the Champions League to go into the team straight away, and I would be fully on board with that. Corvo's saying 50k a week. I don't know. Listen, I'm not privy to what players are getting, but by all accounts, Cal McGregor's new deal put him up to that sort of wage bracket. Who else? Was it just Cal McGregor, or was Maeda or somebody put?
Kyogo would be on a bit of serious money.
Kyogo it was. Sorry, aye. So they guys have been put onto that sort of serious money. You look at it and you go, has that been done so that when we do bring these guys in, it doesn't sort of cause that disharmony, breaking our wage bracket, if you like? I don't know, but if you're asking me, Podence in isolation as a player, absolutely, you would take him at Celtic. And as I said, it's that level of player that you're signing for the Champions League. And I agree with Stephen. As much as I love Maeda, as much as I love Abada, I think Podence probably goes straight into the team after a couple of weeks. In terms of Ryan Fraser, I've made the case last week before I heard anything about Podence. Am I right in thinking they play in different sides?
I
think they're both left-sided. Other than that, there's Ryan Fraser off the right.
Ryan Fraser's left, but I think he can play right and through the middle. He's quite versatile. I think Scotland's used him.
Podence is like that.
Aye, well, I mean, so there you go. But I mean, before I made the case for Ryan Fraser before Podence was spoke about. I don't think that, for me, I don't think they bring in the both of them.
No.
So if I'm wanting one, it's obviously Podence. But if we don't, I mean, nothing's concrete. Rodgers was asked about Podence today, and he was asked, "Do you have anything to add to it?" He was asked about Ryan Fraser, "Do you have anything to add to it?" And he said no. But that's not shutting the possibility of them coming to Celtic down. That's just saying, I've nothing to add to that now, because the deal or the talks aren't far enough down the line. And managers do it all the time. You've seen it enough times. But Ryan Fraser, for me, if you take Podence out of the equation and he's not linked, I think Ryan Fraser's got, again, really good English Premier League experience. I think he's had a bit of a time. You like to say to Corvo, tell us what your opinion is on Ryan Fraser.
He's the only guy who in this chat who supports Newcastle.
Aye, but Ryan Fraser hasn't just played for Newcastle.
Oh, I know.
Do you know what I mean? He had a time at Bournemouth where he was exceptional. He had a partnership alongside Callum Wilson, which was one of the most, I want to say affluent, I don't know if that's the right word, in terms of assists and goals. It was a great link-up. I think they were, one of the seasons they were right up there with Harry Kane and Son. And that's at a club like Bournemouth. I think it was the season Bournemouth finished 7th or 8th. Listen, I know he's had a time at Newcastle. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think he went to Newcastle before Eddie Howe did, and then obviously they had the history because Ryan Fraser refused to play during COVID, and I can't remember if he'd got. I can't mind the full ins and outs of that, right? But that was Ryan Fraser's prerogative to play or not to play. But it doesn't make him a bad player. Now, I also don't think it makes him.
But he's not better than what we have.
Well, I'll come to that, but I don't think it makes him a bad influence in the dressing room. In terms of, is he better than what we've got? I can't say he is. Even when he was at his height, playing in the Premier League, is he better than Maeda? I don't think he offers you the same as Maeda going back the way. I don't think he offers you the same work rate. But a fit and firing Ryan Fraser is as much a threat as Maeda to a defence in the Scottish Premier League. And I think his decision making in the final third is better than Maeda's. I think his first touch is better than Maeda's. I think his finishing ability is, I would say, better than Maeda's. Now, I know you've made the case that Maeda played up front in the Japanese league and stuff like that. Listen, he scored a lot of goals in that league, but if you look at Maeda's sort of where he'd be playing for Celtic, he's been playing in the left. He has scored goals, but that on Sunday was a prime example of how poor his decision making is in the final third. I love Maeda, you know that.
That's what happened with Fraser. The EPL extended because of COVID. Fraser refused to extend for 2 months to help Bournemouth in the relegation battle, as he signed a pre-contract with Newcastle, and Bournemouth got relegated.
Well, again, that's his prerogative, because, right, okay, you expect because of the relationship he had with Eddie Howe and stuff like that, go and give me 2 months. But Ryan Fraser has got a huge move to Newcastle. It's a bigger club than Bournemouth by a long, long way. If he goes out and plays in that 2 months for Bournemouth, it might be morally right to do that. But if he goes out and gets a really bad injury, breaks his leg or something, then what if he gets a career-ending injury and then he just doesn't get that move to Newcastle because he's played for a club he's not even actually legally contracted to? But going back to Ryan Fraser, the player, Maeda has played on the left-hand side for Celtic for the majority. I don't think he's an out-and-out striker. I don't really like him in that position, although he has done okay, I concede, under Brendan Rodgers. But for me, I know I've made the case that Podence comes in and he goes straight into the team. But that doesn't mean to say Maeda doesn't play a large chunk of games this season, because Brendan Rodgers, as we've all said, will use the squad this season. So whether it be Ryan Fraser, whether it be Podence, Abada and Maeda will still play their fair chunk of games or more than the guys coming in, because they're important to this squad and Rodgers will use the squad. So as much as you say, is he better than what we've got, it's not always about being better than what we've got. And I know I've said,
well, not
always, because like the team we've got now is pretty good, and you can't always every single signing you make be better than what you've got. But Ryan Fraser is as good as what we've got. Podence probably is better than what we've got. I'd be quite happy with the both of them coming in. I'd be quite happy with Ryan Fraser coming in. I'd be absolutely delighted with Podence coming in.
I think as well, like you look at it, I think you make a great point there, but for me, if you're looking again to go to that next level, and you said it yourself, Ross, Podence is that statement signing. Fraser for me is just on the list, kind of to come in and that term beef up the squad, where Podence is the guy who comes in and takes the jersey off Abada, takes the jersey off Maeda, and that's the type of guy I want to come in from now until the end of this window. Yes, I'm happy, as I said, with Narowski and Lagerbielke coming in as centre halves, but again, like you said as well, Ross, we're expecting the Celtic to kind of do something towards the end of this window and maybe get a better clientele, or maybe the term well-known, established kind of player in. And they've done that, with Narowski, who's established in the Polish League, Lagerbielke, who's established in the Swedish League, and then if you get Podence coming in, there's 3 first-team ready players, and I think that would be a great bit of business. Ryan Fraser, for me, like I can't tell you enough how much he does. It's like the feeling I got when Aaron Moy signed. That's sleepy, tired.
You were wrong about that.
To be fair,
I wasn't wrong in that. I wasn't wrong in that. He had 2 good months. Two good months in the Celtic jersey, and he was outstanding. And he was gone.
Christmas.
After Christmas, good months.
After Christmas, at the business end of the season, he was one of our best players.
100%.
He was outstanding in the cup final.
Well, But what I'm trying to say is that's the feeling I get. I know people have a different opinion on Moy, but that's for, I think, to be honest, half your eye must be covered and you're watching it like this. He was good for 2 months, and that's all he was for us. He came to us to get fit for Australia, in my opinion, and then after that, he was all right. Good riddance to him. But I mean, in terms of in terms of potence, again, as I say, he'd be an excellent player, and I think Jed Thomas comes in. Is he an upgrade on Jota? I don't know. I think Jota's potential is higher, but I think potence is already established. He's come to his prime years, and I think, again, as I said, be a great bit of business.
And by the way, can I just say, I want Celtic, and for the rest of this window, to bring guys in that can make or stake a claim for the starting 11. And Podence, I feel you could say before a ball's kicked, he will come in and do that. I think Ryan Fraser has potential to come in and do that. But again, I'll reiterate, he has potential to come in and do that. But regardless, I think whoever's jersey he's coming in to take, that person will still play a fair chunk of games.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. So that's the sort of attacking sort of rumours tonight, boys. I'll bring it into the defensive ones, and I know that obviously we have covered some of it before. I think Ross, you summed it up well on Monday. This guy sounds like he could be a pupil at Hogwarts, but Olivier Merlin from the French league, and it's potentially a left back deal, £7 million. Again, it's in that sort of upgrade sort of kind of fee. Again, these rumours, they start, they fall away, then they take track again. We've also heard, and my own gut instinct, because I'm obviously going to bring up our favourite son, Mr. Tierney. I think personally, this is only a gut thing, mate. I think Celtic are not out the picture with it. I think they're essentially waiting to see if Newcastle, which was, at the start of when the summer began, that was where the sort of wisdom was that's where he was going to go. And to be fair, I do think that would be a natural fit for him if he did go. But that bid doesn't seem to be forthcoming for the moment. I think that could potentially be a deadline day drama sort of deal, and in the sense that if Arteta's, he clearly claims to me, Ross, that he's not part of Arteta's plans one way or the other. If that deal to Newcastle doesn't sort of come around, is there a potential? Do you think perhaps a loan option that could be sort of triggered on the deadline day? And of course, Frank, it's on the agenda, so we've got to bring it up. Sorry if it's ruining your Friday night, but Eric Dyer has been mentioned. What would your thoughts be on that?
Well, first of all, on the sort of Tierney stuff, a few months back, I was the same. I thought he would have went to Newcastle. I think it is a perfect fit. But the boy Timber got a bad injury for Arsenal. I think he plays on Tierney's side. So I'd be surprised unless Arsenal get somebody else in. Which baffles me that they lose somebody and they maybe still don't want Kieran Tierney. Yeah. I don't know if Kieran Tierney's want up the road, if he's a bit homesick. No privy to that. But Corvo has just said there that Newcastle have signed Lewis Hall for 35 million. I don't know who that is, but
Chelsea.
He must be a left back. So I'm guessing that Newcastle have probably seen that Timber has been injured and thought Arsenal are going to let Tierney go now, so we need to get our business done. So the move to Newcastle might be off the table. The move to Celtic might still be on the table. Listen, I've been on record saying a few times in this podcast that I would love Kieran Tierney to come back. And even, I don't see the sense in Celtic bringing Kieran Tierney back as a loan. And I know short term it would be tremendous. It really would. But if you asked me, as much as the romantic side of it and stuff like that, I'm coming back. One of your favourite sons, as you eloquently put it there, Anthony. I think that for me, if it's a choice between, and I know nothing about Merlin, he's £7 million price tag. He's 21-year-old. He's a big tall laddie, which I think
He's
we
not.
probably
He's only
need.
5'9".
Well, that's talking to me. I'm 5'5". But
I like that. I like that.
I mean, that's nearly 6 foot. Nah, but he's apparently quite athletic. I just think for me, and I know it's quite a big outlay for a 21-year-old player, but if Celtic and Brendan Rodgers feel like that's the guy that can come in and do the job that he wants to do, I'll trust him implicitly, because Brendan Rodgers is a really experienced manager, and Celtic are doing their due diligence all the time. Probably Ryan Fraser.
That's why he loves him.
To be fair. But if it's a straight choice between Merlin and Kieran Tierney, I would probably be leaning towards getting Merlin in, just because longer term I think it would work.
Great point.
Kieran Tierney has not been blessed with much luck in terms of injuries, but if Kieran Tierney's fit, he's an absolutely wonderful asset for Celtic, and if they bring him in, I'm not going to turn my nose up at it, and even if they bring him in over this Merlin. But as I say, if it's a toss-up between the two of them, for me it's Merlin, purely because of the longer term for the club and the team, because I think we'd be back to square one with Bernaby and Taylor at the end of the season, and we've been down that road too many times, and it's just not the way Celtic work now. I don't think they're in that market of bringing in loan players, unless it's an option to buy like they have done in the last couple of seasons. What was the other one?
Our favourite subject, Eric Dyer.
Eric Dyer. Right, well, I mean, if Celtic can get a player of Eric Dyer's calibre over the line, 29-year-old, 50 caps for England, he can play centre half, he can play what a lot of Celtic fans, including myself, have been screaming out for, a physical, maybe not totally athletic, he's maybe not as mobile as you would like, but he would be a perfect fit for Celtic coming into the Champions League to play that. And I know it is not as popular a role now, but for a team like Celtic in the Champions League, I think we need a holding midfielder. I think we need to be more solid. As much as I loved the way Ange played the swashbuckling all out attack in the Champions League, and it almost worked. I still think we need to be that bit more solid. Eric Dyer would bring that in spades. Is it a deal we can afford financially? It's up for discussion. Would Eric Dyer want to leave Tottenham? I dare say some of the lesser clubs than Tottenham. I dare say some of the lesser clubs than Tottenham in England would be looking to get an Eric Dyer on their books. Listen, if we could get Eric Dyer,
you shouldn't have told these people your height, Ross. You should not have told.
5'5.5". Listen, I'm easy. I've heard all the jokes before. But
it's like Ross is like the opposite of Peter Crouch. He's got all the answers there. It's like just the other way about. It's like, this isn't my first rodeo.
Aye. If Celtic can get an Eric Dyer over the line, it would be the biggest signing in terms of name, I don't know, since maybe Robbie Keane or something like that. It would be a huge, huge, monumental statement signing, in my opinion. Can we get it done? I mean, I would highly doubt it, to be honest with you. But if we did, massive.
Yeah. Celtic is a club that allows you to dream, Ross, as we know that. So, Stephen, I'll come to yourself, mate, just for your own thoughts on those, potential incomings on the defensive front as well.
I mean, I love how every time it comes to me, Ross is taking a deep breath. It's like getting in a zen.
No.
Wosa. Well, if you look at Merlin, obviously he plays for Nantes in France. I think he's, as you said, he's 21. He's 5'9". He's already made over 100 senior appearances. By the way, this is just me reading off like Wikipedia. It's not me doing deep dives and scouting and all that. The information's for people to see. From all the reports I'm seeing in the chat, obviously there's people who know a lot more about leagues than I certainly do anyway. And they're saying Merlin has a wand of the left foot. He scored a wonder goal against PSG. He's very quick. He's very dynamic. He can get up and down that line. And he can defend, which is probably a plus, isn't it? I mean, we want a left back in that can actually put a foot in and not let players get past them on certain occasions. But yeah, Merlin would excite me. If we're looking at Kieran Tierney, I'm with Ross on this one. Unless we get him on a permanent deal, there's no point for me bringing them in loan, and then you're doing the same kind of thing next season when we're talking about Taylor, we're talking about Burnaby. Do we need to get a new one in? If we're going to settle the left back position, we'll do it this summer and we'll move forward and we get better. And I think for me, Merlin, he's 21, €7 million would be a great outlay on a player who's already been capped up the France under 21 level. They're talking about him like he's the next big thing, and there's a lot of interest around Europe, so it'd be a hard kind of chase to get a signature, but one I think we could win with the record Rodgers especially has, kind of developing younger players, moving them on, etc., etc. So I would like to get him through the door if that's concrete. I'm looking at Eric Dyer, and like Ross, I mean, I see a lot of comments saying that Alistair Jack, that would be Dyer, and Corvo said he doesn't want to see you play FIFA if you're trying to sign Eric Dyer. I think Eric Dyer, what I have to remember here, he played over 30 games last season for Spurs. Conte once described him as one of the best centre halves in the Premier League when he played in that position. And yeah, he's probably lost a bit of form or he's fell out a bit of favour, but it's like Podence. So I mean, he might want to get back to playing football again, loving football and kind of getting the feel for the game again. And he has a former England national goalkeeper up here in Joe Hart who can maybe lean on him and talk to him and that type of stuff. The Tottenham connection with Vickers and Joe Hart in that aspect. And Eric Dyer played the majority of the games in the previous World Cup for England. He wasn't sitting on the bench. Like, he played, I think, 6 of the 8 games or 6 of the 7 games, 90 minutes. And I think it'd be a great signing. And it's like, as Ross said, Poland's statement signing, Eric Dyer would be another massive statement signing. Over 6 foot. We've been crying out for physicality. Roger said it when he first got here. He wants physical players in the team to complement the technical aspect of it. And I think for me, he would fit that. And not only that, Eric Dyer can play. He can play football. He can pass the ball. He can hit free kicks, and he's a danger in the box. We've seen that for England and things. And I think for me, it'd be a quality signing. And if you imagine the window, you get Eric Dyer, you get Daniel Podence, you get Merlin, you get Lagerbielke and Naraki coming in, and then the rest kind of filling that out. I think that would be a fantastic window. That's what I've been crying out for. And I think sometimes it gets misunderstood on wanting us to sign like £20 million players or £40 million players. I would love that, but it's never going to happen. And if I look at the comments, I mean, let's have we look here, see if there's any for there. It's hard to see in terms of that. People are mostly against them. I think that's quite strange in my opinion, because
folk have never watched football then, no?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, Eric Dyer, I think Frank Brennan said it's like listening to a 12-year-old on heat. I mean, I'm just excited for a player of that calibre. Do you think it'll happen?
Did Just Eat no deliveries rice with his curry or something? You're going to have to have his rice, Frank. You're an angry man tonight.
Do you think
rice, man?
Do you think that it will happen? Probably not. I mean, he's on astronomical wages. There's rumours of Saudi Arabian clubs looking after him. And look, again, as Anthony said, we can dream about these players coming in. I think Dyer for me is one of them guys. If we got him in, it'd be a statement signing. And it's something as us fans. And you can try and tell me if you're going into a knockout tie or whatever, and you've got like Eric Dyer in your team, you won't be confident. Of course, you'd be confident. You'd be more confident than with most of the players who have in their team, with him included in that. And I think it'd be a fantastic addition. And Anthony, I want to hear your opinion on Eric Dyer, Kieran Tierney, and Merlin. So, what do you think?
Yeah. Well, in terms of the Merlin deal, I think he's definitely the one that, put around our brackets, fits the profile the most, and our favourite thing, resale value. And as I say, in regards to KT, I do agree with what you guys are saying in terms of the likelihood of it, Stephen. But as I say, the only thing I could see written, as I say, Corvo might have actually brought that, kind of killed that potential side of Stone Dead, where he's saying about, obviously, Newcastle have brought in a left back. Maybe they're looking at it as if to say he's not going to that he's not going to actually be sold to Newcastle, so it maybe becomes a moot point sort of thing. But yeah, as I say, Merlin would probably be the one out of the three that would potentially be the most likely. I'm actually with you guys on Dyer. I have to say, I mean, he's one of I used to, like when I was younger, I used to get him mixed up a bit with Kieran Trippier for some unknown reason. But no, I think he's definitely got ability. But as we always say, with anything down south, it's whether or not it can be tempted up here anyway. But and obviously the financial package that would need to be kind of included with that as well. It's definitely one that you would put in the unlikely column, shall we say. And I just want to say with the comments as well, I know one of our, but you brought him up earlier, Stephen, was Stephen Coulthard. Hail to you, mate. We have a good wee bit of, anyway, oh, he's an angry man. He's angry.
I don't know. Is he calling me that? Because I can have a debate with you, Frank. No problem, and if you want to, we can fire into the chat. No worries, mate.
He's never the most happy, Frank. But anyway, yeah, Stephen Coulthard. Good news, mate. Sharna are in the process of making the t-shirts. I know that was part of your prize for winning the Super Six, so it definitely should be with you sooner rather than later, which is great. So. Yeah, the minute we get that delivered, we'll put that up with the other part of your prize, and we'll get that sent out to you. So, as I say, hopefully shouldn't be too much longer, mate, and we appreciate your patience. And that's all the sort of rumours and mill in terms of transfers out the way, boys. But I'm going to come to a bit closer to home because there's also been a lot of new contracts getting handed out as well, and also rumours of potential new contracts as well this week. So come to yourself first, Ross. No surprise. During the week there, we've had the news that boys that are definitely more on the more still in the development phase. You would say Bosun Lawal and Ben Summers both penned new contracts, but then immediately went out on loan deals, respectively to Fleetwood and Dunfermline Athletic. And the news broke today before the photo. News dropped off him actually at the hospital because he's picked up an injury. I don't know if it was lifting the pen or not. I don't know. But Stephen Welsh, one of our homegrown players, he's penned a new contract till I believe 2027. The news broke today. So those are the confirmed, and also as well that has sort of been from Stephen McGowan that Rio Hatate and Leo Abada contract talks have opened with those as well. So just kind of your thoughts on all the contract packages, and I'm sure Stephen will be more than prepared for giving you his opinion on it as well. Folks.
In terms of Summers and Lowell, or Lowell, however, how is it you say it? Lowell?
Too many Lowells at the club.
I know. Well, Bosun and Summers, I think it's good for them to go out on loan. I like the fact that before they sent them out am I getting that round the wrong way? Before they sent them out on loan or after they sent them out on loan, they got them nailed down in new contracts. I think it's better they go out to these clubs than playing in the sort of de facto fifth tier of Scottish football, backwater, no really learning much, playing with the sort of Celtic B team. I think it's good for them to go out and get proper like first team football, and then they can come back and see if they can stake a claim to get into the team. Whether they will or not is another discussion, but they've got two promising young guys, nailed down on, I think it's 3-year contracts, and they're going out and getting a bit of experience, which they otherwise wouldn't get at Celtic in the first team. So I think that's decent business, and it's looking after the young guys pretty well. What are you laughing at there, Steve?
This one. The count that can't believe she moved to another country and Starfelt didn't take the hint.
Brilliant.
Sorry, Ross.
No, that's fine. So that was A2. What was the other ones? Stephen Welsh and...
So it was Lawwell and Summers pen new deals, as is Stephen Welsh, and the rumours are that talks have opened with Hatate and Abada as well.
Aye. In terms of Stephen Welsh, me and Stephen Tomlinson, had we been in the same room, I'd have probably been knocked out earlier. But we had a quite fiery debate. What is he writing there?
What he told me to write.
Yeah.
What he told Brown Warrior told me. Go ahead, sorry.
All right. Aye. Stephen Welsh. Now, for me, I've been asked loads of times in this podcast before the transfer window and stuff about Stephen Welsh and what his position was in the team. I think his position is what it is right now. I've always said that if Stephen Welsh wanted to get more first team football, then he should leave Celtic for Stephen Welsh. But if he wants to stay, and I wanted him to stay for a selfish point of view, knowing that he probably won't play like week in, week out, I still stand by that. But Stephen Welsh, I've seen a lot of negativity, and I'm not aiming this at you, Stephen, but I'm not. No, I'm a joke. I've seen a lot of negativity towards Stephen Welsh, especially the last few weeks, and I look at it and I think, why the negativity? I don't recall Stephen Welsh playing a game for Celtic and having a howler. And when you're talking about absolute howlers, like he's no made a glaring mistake that's cost the team. He comes in and he does his job. Listen, not to a Carter Vickers level, maybe not even to a Starfelt level, but he does it to a good level. And Stephen Welsh is a good squad Celtic player. He's a good player to fall back on, and that was no more evident than it was on Sunday when he came in for the cold and a game, probably one of our toughest away matches in the league, right up there with Rangers and Tynecastle. He's come in out the cold in a game where we were under the cosh for large spells. And for me, I know that the defence wasn't under as much pressure as it was in the first half because we started to get a grip in the midfield and stuff like that. But fair enough, Jed. But for me, he comes into that game and he sort of breezed through it. It was no problem. Stephen Welsh can come in and do a job for Celtic at SPL level. In terms of Champions League level, he's not had a great deal of experience at Champions League level, but he came in, I think he played in Leipzig last year alongside Jens, and people were saying he's not up to the level. But he was coming in to play alongside a guy that also hadn't played too many games for Celtic, and it was a partnership that was new. I'm not saying that Stephen Welsh is good enough for the Champions League, but for Celtic to get him nailed down in a 4-year deal, I'm pretty happy with that, because I think you're sitting there and we've got Carter Vickers, we've got Navroke, we've got Lagerbielke, and now we have Stephen Welsh. We've got Kobayashi and Scales, but I don't know enough about Lagerbielke, but I dare say Celtic are bringing him in to be the second or third choice striker, or to play out. Do you know what I mean?
Frank's agreeing with you, boy. Frank's agreeing with you.
There we go. We got there in the end.
Aye, that's it. It's because it's no Stephen it's talking. But Stephen Welsh, for me, can be that fourth choice striker. Stephen, I heard you drawing the comparisons earlier about Stephen Welsh has been around. He's been around the club for a while, and you said it's like O'Shea and Wes Brown at Man United. And I looked at that and I thought, well, Man United had Rio Ferdinand Vidic at the time, right? And then they had O'Shea and Wes Brown to play underneath them. They are by no stretch as good as Ferdinand Vidic. In fact, it was a huge drop-off. But you could probably count in one hand the amount of times that they two played together, as in Brown and O'Shea, over 4, 5, 6 seasons. And Man United were competing in all fronts, and Man United were competing in all fronts, and they needed Welsh Welsh, O'Shea and Brown to come in at times, and they done a job good enough to help Man U along the way. Celtic are competing in all four fronts, and they have CCV. Navroke, for me, I know it's early, but he looks up to the task. By all accounts, Lagerbielke might even be better than him. But for me, Stephen Welsh is a Wes Brown or a John O'Shea, in that he can come in to that team like Sunday and do a job. It remains to be seen if he'll be able to do a job in the Champions League. But let's be honest, if we go into any Champions League game with Carter Vickers and Navroke, or Carter Vickers and Lagerbielke, the question marks will still be there whether they can do it, because they haven't proved themselves at that level either. They've had a go at it, but you've admittedly said yourself, Stephen, that they didn't do it. They came up short, and they did. So again, I'll say it. Stephen Welsh, for me, when you look at Kobayashi, the way he put in, I know. Listen, he came into a team that were sort of experimenting.
I don't know, like, you want to see me in the group chat, Monty.
Kobayashi came into a team last year. It was sort of experimenting towards the end of the season. I made that argument for Ralston as well, so it's only fair to do it for Kobayashi. But even in pre-season, he looked at 6s and 7s. He doesn't look comfy. I think he looks too slight. Stephen Welsh has never looked uncomfortable. I'll admit he's not the size of a Carter Vickers or a Navroke, but you look at Lagerbielke, he looks quite slight. Stephen Welsh, for me, is a good, steady defender. No nonsense. He doesn't do anything fancy. He just does his job. And even in the opposition box, he's a threat, and he's proven that. He's scored headers for Celtic on numerous occasions. This is a guy, by the way, who came into Celtic at 21-year-old and played in the COVID season. An absolute disaster. But he came out of that season and he could hold his head high. He wasn't one of the ones that totally underperformed. He was playing in a highly underperforming team. But people forget he's been around the first team for a wee, 2-3 years now, you would have to say. He's still only 23-year-old. People say they've made the case for I can't even mind, but 23-year-old isn't old, in my opinion. I'm not saying Stephen Welsh will be a first team pick, but he's got time on his side, and he's learning under Brendan Rodgers, who makes players better. He made so many players his first time around better. I think he could do it with Stephen Welsh, but again, I'm not saying he'll start, but Stephen Welsh is a great asset for us to have as a squad player. He's a great asset for Celtic, and he can also tell new guys who come in, as much as he's not a senior player, he alluded to it in his press conference the day, as much as he's not a senior player, he can still tell the new guys what it means to be playing at Celtic and what the club is all about.
Yeah,
that's me.
For what it's worth, I agree with that, mate. As I say, every squad needs a squad player, and he definitely falls into that category. For me personally, as I say, of course, he's never going to be first pick. We know that. But of course as well, his nationality helps as well, because it does fit in with the homegrown quota that we're going to have. But yeah, like you say, we're fighting on four fronts, and we do need a sort of nucleus, I would say, of some kind of homegrown Scottish players as well. And as I say, he knows everything about the club. We know he's Celtic daft. His family's Celtic daft as well. That doesn't necessarily mean it's a given for. That means he should get a sort of place in the team or a place in the squad. But I think he is where he is on merit. You know, there's so many youth players, as we know, that get sold off very quickly. There has been interest from Welsh every season. In the time that he's been at the club, and Celtic have knocked it back. So yeah, as I say, I wasn't surprised at the news that he's staying on. But of course, the Celtic family is a broad church, Stephen. We don't all speak with one voice. What was your thoughts on today's announcement?
Well, I think you can tell by Ross's impassionate defence of Welsh that we had quite of a ding dong earlier on, to be honest. And I was working in a mood, he was working in a mood, but we're here now. I mean, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of positive comments in the chat, and again, it differs. People saying Welsh isn't good enough. Obviously, people saying Welsh is a great option to have, and I do get both sides. Look, I'm not against this contract, right? I'm not against it. But Roger said he wants 4 competing centre backs, and that to me screams 4 centre backs of round about the same level. Welsh is nowhere near the same level as the 3 we have, in my opinion. You pointed to the fact, Ross, that Lagerbielke and the Rocky haven't quite obviously done it yet, but don't know, they're unknown. That's fair enough. But they've came from established leagues. They've played over 100 senior games. Fantastic. So they've got something about them. Welsh, to me, in a roundabout way, I mean, Toulouse, Udinese, teams are interested in him. He's wasting his career at Celtic, in my opinion. He's shown a wee bit of lack of ambition in himself just to kind of settle and sign this contract. I think he should have went. He should have gone. And Rodgers made a point today, or actually last week, he wants to keep him around. Look, I get all that sentimentality. I get he's a Celtic man. I get he's been there since he's 12, and that's 100%. But he's not good enough for us. If Conor Vickers is injured, right? All you need is one of the other centre backs, the Rocky or Lagerbielke to get injured.
How's he not good enough for us though? Because you keep saying he's not good enough, but you haven't told us why.
Well, I don't think he is. I think he's slow. I think he's very weak in the air. I also think that Alistair Jack made a great point. If you watched the St Mirren game last season, he was culpable for a few opportunities. And also, Jed brought up, we played in Europe, and he made a few mistakes, and he was in the team. And it's like if you go into a Champions League game this season with Welsh at the centre half, we'll be having this discussion again after this, that the group being like, we should have strengthened that area, got one more body in. And I think that's what we should do. Because if you're having 4 competing centre backs, that tells me that Rodgers wants them all around the same level. Welsh has been there. He's been under Lenny. He's been under Postecoglou. Postecoglou didn't rate him. And obviously, for me, in my opinion, he would have been out the door if Ange was still there. He's not. It's like Ralston for me. They're just not good enough for Celtic. They're domestic level, and that's it. That's their ceiling. I mean, Ralston went to Dundee United, St Johnstone and Field. He doesn't look good because he's playing with better players at the minute, but his weaknesses come to the fore when we're under pressure, when we're not having most of the ball. And it's like Welsh in European football as well. If we go to a higher level, that higher bracket, he'll fail, in my opinion. And if you're looking at Lagerbielke and you're looking at the Rocky, we got them for peanuts in terms of money. So I'm sure there's another guy who could bring in the round that who'd be happy rotating before good level centre halves. And look, like you said, Rodgers season week in, week out. So again, I can't say my opinion because everyone's going to trust Rodgers in this instance. I get that 100%, but it's just 4 years of him just sitting around in the doldrums waiting for opportunities here and there. And in my opinion, maybe 6 to 10 appearances a season. Yeah, I know Willie said in the chat we all need squad players and that, but only squad players that can make an impact and eventually stake a claim for the first team level. Like if you look at Yang, he's going to start as a squad player, but he'll come in, he'll compete, and maybe he'll take the jersey off Abada. You look at home,
he'll come in, he'll compete. Player?
No, Abada's a first team regular right now.
But if he comes in and takes the jersey and he doesn't become a squad player,
yeah, Abada will jump into the squad player. Then it's up to him to fight back and get that jersey again. Of course it does. Welsh will never be a first team pick. He'll never be a first team pick. He's not going to break that ceiling. He's not going to break past the Vickers or anybody like that. It's the same with Ralston and Johnson. Ralston is never, ever in a million years going to be our first pick. It's going to be Al's. As soon as he comes back, he'll be in. And for me, we're talking about beefing out squads and that. How about we get squad players in who are going to fancy take that place? Welsh will never do that. It's so, for me, it's underwhelming, right? 100% underwhelming.
Favorite one.
And yeah, it's my favourite word. And I don't care, to be honest, because I know people don't. That's fair enough. But I think it's underwhelming. You look at Bhoys and Lawwell, you look at Ben Summers. Celtic did a great thing with them. Signed them a 3-year contract, popped them out loan. Welsh has passed that opportunity now. He's 23, 24. There's no point in him.
Guys are a few years younger.
That's what I'm saying. But they're going to develop. They're going to develop.
You got to remember, at the point of Stephen, when Stephen Welsh was at that point in his career, there was a global pandemic coming on and the club was in an absolute shit show. If Stephen Welsh had been, if Stephen Welsh was the same age as Lawwell, etc., right now, the club is in a far better state. Perhaps that loan deal would have happened rather than I'm just getting flung in at the deep end. Do you know what I mean? Could we really say that any of the team, any of the youth players that have been flung in at the deep end could have impressed with the club in the state that they were in back then?
Well, I mean, no, probably not. That's fair enough. But I'm saying, what I'm trying to say is Welsh has passed that development phase. I don't think he can really improve anymore. He's not going to get
at 23.
quicker.
He can't improve.
23, 24, in my opinion.
Come off it, man.
I think he should be. I think he should be out the door. I think he should be out the door. I don't understand why there's such a fanfare around him. I really don't. I would understand this if he was.
It's not a fanfare.
It's just it is a acceptance of, like you say, every squad needs squad players. So it's just a case of, well, he's sticking around. It's as I say, that great 99 squad that we were talking about there with Man United. That's maybe a bad time because a lot of them were homegrown. But for every Paul Scholes or whatever, you needed a Ronnie Johnson. For every Dwight York and Andy Cole, you needed a Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. For every Gary Neville, you needed a Phil Neville. For whenever Celtic's got a big squad, and I would agree that there's still a few that need shipped out, but there still has to be that nucleus of. For what it's worth, I agree with you. I don't think he's going to be. He's certainly not in contention for Champions League games, but he is one of those players that, on the back of a Champions League game, perhaps away from home, and perhaps Navroki or that's picked up a knock, and we're at home to, I don't know, a St Johnstone that Saturday. That's when he comes in. That's when your squad players get utilised. And when you put,
but you're missing the point. There could be a point in this season where he has to play in a European fixture. Are you trying to tell me right now you'd be confident getting in with Navroki and Welsh at the back? Of course you wouldn't.
Right. Well, you're trying to tell me right now that you'd be confident going in with Navroki or Lagerbielke alongside CCV?
Well, they've came from established leagues and played over 100 appearances for their actual teams.
So
of course, they'd be confident. And they've been champions.
I'm not saying that Stephen Welsh is better than them.
Too.
I'm not saying that Stephen Welsh is better than them. But for us to have Stephen Welsh as a fourth choice, now I understand, right? You've made the point on Ralston there, right? Ralston is the only one that's competing with Johnston for that position. So I concede that I would maybe try and strengthen Johnston's understudy. But there's more options at centre half, and that Stephen Welsh is fourth choice as it stands, right? The likelihood of him having to play in a Champions League game is lesser. It is. It's lesser than Ralston, because Ralston is the only option. There would have to be a few more injuries before Stephen Welsh had to play. Stephen Welsh had to play, because there's three players in front of him. And listen, I get that we've got two out there now, but over the course of the season, the chances of Welsh having to get put in a Champions League game is slimmer than Ralston. I'm not saying that Stephen Welsh is good enough for the Champions League. I'm not saying he's the best centre half at Celtic
Is he good
Park.
enough for us?
He's good enough. He's good enough to be at Celtic and have his role in the team that he has got right now. Absolutely, he is. He's proven that coming in league games. But the point
is he
I'm
better than
making
Liam
is,
Scales?
Go and let me finish. Aye, he's better than Liam Scales. Aye. The point I'm trying.
About him pre-season.
Oh, just leave it. I'm not going to talk. It's fine.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. There's no point getting all moany about it. I'm just saying you were waxing lyrical about Liam Scales in pre-season. Now he's been wiped to the side. Now you're saying Welsh is better. Yeah, you said Liam Scales is brilliant. We all did, but he's not getting the look in.
I didn't say he was brilliant.
Pre-season.
Absolutely did not say that. You're just made up a lot of pish there.
I'm just saying Liam Scales me.
Right, so Stephen, Ross was making his point. Let him finish, and then you can counter it.
Well, my point was that Stephen Welsh, you'll have two centre halves who are going to be your first choice pairing. We don't know what that is yet, right? It's going to be CCV. The likelihood is it'll be Navroki or Lagerbielke, right? Stephen Welsh isn't going to be in that. But like Anthony said, I'll make the point again. Rio Ferdinand and Vidic, the drop off for they two was quite big. It's the same. Like, you're not going to get two CCVs and two. Like, we don't know what Navroki's going to be like, right? So let's make the point. It was Starfelt, right? You're not going to have two Starfelts. You're not going to have two CCVs. The people who are going to be under, you're not going to get four centre halves all the same level. It's just not going to happen, especially not at Celtic. But you'll get two good centre halves who'll do the job, and it'll be a good centre half pairing for Celtic. And then you'll have two guys who are their understudies. And the reason they're their understudies is because they aren't as good. And that's why they're the understudy, but they're still good squad players to have. You need to have guys like Stephen Welsh in your squad. I'll go back to it. Johnny Hayes was never a top quality Celtic player, but he was a guy you could rely on. Mm-hmm. That is why I think Stephen Welsh isn't. He's not. I was going to say he's no Celtic class. That's not what I'm trying to say. Stephen Welsh isn't a first pick level, but he's a guy, if he wants to be around, who is good enough to be at Celtic and come in and do a job, in my opinion.
I would, yeah, for what it's worth, I would agree with that. But fair's fair, Stephen. You make your point, and then we'll move on to something.
I've said my point.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. Then we'll leave the contract gate at that and move on to another one, which I'm sure there's probably going to be a bit more agreement on, and it's the subject that's like a turd that just won't flush away. It's the Nigel Farage of subjects. It's I'm talking, of course, about allocation gate. Latest rumours are that, although there's been absolutely nothing official yet, it has to say, and I'm going to break this down into two bits, Stephen. The first of all is just the actual facts of the case at the start, and then we'll look at the media's deplorable behaviour throughout this whole saga as well. Looks as though Celtic are going to refuse, Celtic are going to refuse their offer of the 700 briefs for the game on the 3rd of September. And although last night it was looking as though that Rangers were still going to be getting their allocation, it looks as there has been, James P did sort of announce today that there might be something in the offing that Celtic might reciprocate that on the basis of something that's not came to the fore yet. So we probably will not talk about that now until we know more facts. But in terms of there will not be any Celtic fans at Ibrox on the 3rd, not through any restrictions or anything. It's just point blank Celtic have refused the allocation. And just so, as we know, there are liars, there's damned liars, and then there's Scottish tabloid journalists. I would say their behaviour, whether it be the print media or the broadcast media, has been nothing short of a disgrace throughout this whole saga. Their misrepresentation of Celtic's stance on it, where they want no part in this. Celtic did not want all allocations to be dropped. They just basically responded in hand with what Rangers did, and we now have refused the tickets on safety grounds as well. We've seen Joe Hart could have had a serious injury with the glass that was flung on the park. Supporters have been targeted as well, we know, and obviously Celtic's coaching staff as well have been subjects to attack from the Ibrox faithful. It is a manifestly unsafe environment for anyone connected to Celtic at this moment in time, and Celtic have taken the quite sensible option, in my opinion, of not taking the 700 seats. Celtic on them as well have been blamed for this, as if it's sort of both sides are as bad as each other on this. We all know why this started, because first time round when Brendan Rodgers was in charge at Celtic, he was the first manager in history to win 4 games on the trot at Ibrox, and it was all manner of victories, whether it be 5-1 drubbings to 3-2 victory, league deciders with 10 men and everything in between. And from there, rather than just ignore the lunatic fringe of the support, the Rangers board have decided to pander to them and basically reduce the allocation to an unsafe level. And from there, they have tried to pass it off as if this is a sort of both sides to blame altercation. Celtic at every turn have tried to rectify this, try and find some common ground. And again, they seem to be getting sort of blame as if it's sort of a double-edged thing, as if we're just as bad on our front, despite the fact there has been no cases of Rangers supporters being, targeted with coins or missiles or anything else when they've been at our place. I would be more than happy to give them the 700 seats because, as we know, Celtic Park's a safe ground. We don't, obviously, we've had our bad moments in the past with the Hugh Dallas incident and stuff. We admit that rather than try and deflect anywhere else. I just wanted to get your own thoughts now, just purely on the sense of what you think of Celtic not taking the tickets, but also your thoughts on the way that the media have falsely portrayed Celtic's stance on it.
Well, I mean, the media falsely portray everything about Celtic, don't they? Especially in Scotland, it's the trend that keeps on going, and every summer and every winter, every transfer window, every issue, every news story is portrayed that Celtic are always the bad ones in every situation. Let's not get away from the fact that it was Brendan Rodgers and Alton Edward that killed them at Ibrox that day, and they've took the huff ever since, and they've cut the allocation. I think Celtic took the right stance in this instance because we're seeing the safety issues. We've heard the reports from fans who've been there saying urang's been chucked at them, Buckfast has been chucked at them, glass bottles, coins, and it's a very easy area to get to. You're in a corner. There's big stands either side of you, and they're talking about netting. That, like, the Celtic supporters aren't cattle. We're not sheep. We're not goats. Do you know what I mean? We should be allowed to support our team freely and in a safe environment. What annoys me is the fact that Rangers have never been punished for the disgusting behaviour you see going on at Ibrox, for the glass bottles in Joe Hart's 6-yard line, for the physio being attacked. Rangers as a club have never faced any punishment whatsoever. In any other European league or any league around the world, you'd be talking about a partial stadium ban, a partial closure, or deducting of points or whatever, because it's disgusting the amount of stuff that's happened since the allocation's been cut. And I feel sorry for the fans because I know there's the hardcore element who want to go to the ground and want to show the support. But you have to understand this as well. A coin's a coin. Hits you in the wrong place, you're in serious trouble. A bottle hits you in the wrong place, you're in serious trouble. So the Celtic board have had to take a stance on this issue and think about the safety of the supporters in this event. And you also look at it as well. Players, Chris Sutton, a former Celtic player, wasn't guaranteed safety, and he couldn't even attend a match to commentate on it when he was with BT Sport. That's the type of levels they're up at the minute. I'd be quite interested to see if he makes it in with Sky Sports this season because he's a co-commentator. But I think Celtic, for me, need to come out and make a statement or make their stance known, because I think Rangers are running the narrative. They're running with it. They're trying to make us out to be the bad ones. And I think you're right. Your man, James Bisgrove, the chief executive of Rangers, admitted that they met up with Michael Nicholson and he was more keen to get the allocation back up. And James was the one pushing back because they wanted the season ticket holders to remain in, is it the Bloomfield stand or Broomfield stand, whatever it's called, and that's the way he wanted to remain. And then you have to look at it as well. It's the Glasgow derby is not the same, and I include this both sides here. The full allocation was brilliant. It brought colour, it brought noise, and yeah, it was your rival supporters, but it added to that event. It added to the atmosphere. You felt it as an opposition player or a player at the home team. Everyone spoke about it. And I mean, they've took the huff and they've cut that because we were hammering them. And it's almost like there's rules within the SPFL about away fans, but surely you're looking at this as a product. Can they not get involved and be like, look, this needs to be sorted. This needs to be sorted out. As you said, Celtic have held out the olive branch to be like, can we get the full allocation back up? They've rejected it. And I don't blame the Celtic board for doing it. I mean, I wouldn't feel safe at Ibrox. Not a chance. I mean, William put in the chat there, I think you should talk about Welsh again. But I think for me, like, safety's paramount. You cannot be sitting in that corner. Not a hope. I think it's too dangerous. It's so volatile. And it just disgusts me that the Broomloan stand, Monty, it just really, really irritates me that they've never been punished as a club. They get let away with everything, every single thing. and they have a cheek to write letters to the SFA complaining about referees or complaining about Celtic maybe blocking the allocation. Are you winding me up? Are you actually winding me up? Do you know what I mean? It's incredible. I mean, according to some pundits as well, Michael Beale has managed his first 3 games and he's been there for half a year. It's absolutely insane. It's insane. And it's the same with the element of the supporters as well. Yes, there's no angels on both sides. We know this. There's a bad element, 100%. But 9 times out of 10, Celtic are the bad ones. And it's always going to be that way. It's always going to be that way, Anthony.
That's it. And you just spoke there about the Rangers chairman, chief executive. I mean, it's just musical chairs with their titles round there, Ross. But it's the only titles they have, really, I suppose, to be fair. James Blisgrove did come away with this, and this is what annoys me. We spoke about this in the chat last night. We had hoped to have James P. Forrest on with us tonight, and he would have actually been the perfect person to ask about it, because he's actually has his seats in one of the areas that we're talking about. The lie that never gets challenged, and this is what really frustrates me with the media. Rangers, anyone invited, but it's Blisgrove at the moment, is able to constantly say, "Oh, we can't get the tickets back because we've sold the season tickets behind that ground, that area of the ground." Now, we all know that could be changed in an instant. It can't this season now, because obviously the season tickets have been sold. But there could be easily a bit of correspondence went out when he got the job back at Easter time to say, from next season, the tickets behind that goal will be available for 17 league games this season. But when it's the 2 derbies, they'll be made available to Celtic fans, because that's exactly what we do, in the hope that this nonsense can never be rectified. That the fans in that area where Rangers fans would traditionally sit, the tickets are sold. The season tickets are sold at a cheaper rate, and when it becomes clear that those tickets that there's not going to be an end to this solution, those supporters get first dibs on buying them up for the forthcoming home fixture. That is easily what they could do. I mean, we just seen it. After they lost the pre-season friendlies, there's going to be a statement coming out now that it's only 500 tickets for away fans at pre-season friendlies now, once the Geordies put 2 past them. It's just, it borders on ridiculous, really, when you think about it, that it seems that in the entire industry, there's not one, so-called journalist prepared to put their head above the parapet and actually do their job and say, listen, this is not on Celtic here. This is Celtic have just reciprocated the way they've been treated, and have tried to find a solution to it time after time. But of course, that doesn't get you in the room where the succulent lamb is getting served. So, what's your own thoughts on it? I know what you've said in the group chat. You're as frustrated with it as of the rest of us, and we'll long to see the day when it is that sort of full stand again. But what's your thoughts on it at the minute?
But I mean, just sort of echo yours. It's we all know that the old allocation, it brings so much more colour and atmosphere to that game. Rangers, listen, we all know. I'm just repeating what you have said. Rangers started it. How anybody in the media or anywhere think that Celtic had no other option than to reciprocate that is beyond me, because the both of them are going for a league title. Rangers lower our allocation, right? So they gain an advantage with having more fans. It's a belter, that. They gain an advantage. They gain an advantage having more fans, and we have lesser. But then they're expecting us not to reciprocate that and allow 7,500 Rangers fans in Parkhead when we get like 700 odd at Ibrox. You're just not going to do that, because the home advantage is a big thing in football. So that is not a level playing field. Celtic are going to, it's their job to make it as level a playing field as they possibly can. And by reciprocating what Rangers done is the right thing to do. It just is. Nobody can argue against that. Like you've said, Anthony, in terms of, obviously, Rangers can't do it this season, but I fully agree with you. They could have had something in place. If they wanted to bring this to an end, they could have had something in place. They knew they were going to be the first derby of the season at Ibrox, because we were the first one last year at Parkhead. That's the way it works. We'll know that. But they didn't do it because, again, they don't want us to have that full quota, because they know that there is a real danger that Celtic could go to Ibrox this season and quite easily win twice again. It's never, when Rangers were the dominant team, it was never an issue. Celtic had to put up with it, getting beat off of Rangers at Parkhead for years. Not once did we take away their quota. But they've then offered Celtic the 700 and I think it was 760 tickets or 706 or something like that. How they expected Celtic as a club to accept that. Now, if they had accepted it, right, Celtic fans, as Stephen says, the hardcore, desperate to be there, would have snapped their tickets up and went and put themselves in peril danger. Celtic as a club, it was up to them to sort of protect their fans and not put them in that position, knowing that they would snap the tickets up because they want to be there. Celtic as a club protected our fan base, and they done the absolute right thing. Because for me, okay, you give offer Celtic that quota, right, and we take them up. Don't put them in that corner. Take 700 fans, Rangers, out of the top right hand corner, the Broomloan or the Copeland, and stick us in that corner with a wee bit segment of police to block it off as you would at Parkhead when they've got that section where James Forrest sits. Quite easily they could do that. We're up in the doldrums, but we're not in any danger. The person that thought that it would be a good idea to put Celtic fans in that wee corner below Rangers fans like this either side, that guy's a prick. He is, because like how can you think that is like that just it's not logical thinking. You go into that stadium and go, we'll stick them there. I would go straight away, even if I was a Rangers man, God forbid I'm not, I would go, again, that's a bit dodgy. You could get stuff getting chucked in, lighters, piss, cartons of cola or whatever. For that height, it can do some serious damage. And people, when they're kegged up and they're in the heat of the moment, guys wouldn't maybe chuck a lighter at somebody ordinarily. But for that 90 minutes, some guys aren't the ordinary and they lose the plot. And for me, it was to put Celtic there. And then, like, they did it, right? And Celtic fans were in danger. Things got thrown at them. But to then offer us it again in the same place, Rangers knew Celtic weren't going to take that. They weren't wanting them to get any tickets. If they wanted Celtic to even get 700 tickets, they would have put them in a place and swapped the Rangers fans who have snapped up these sought-after season tickets and put them in that pen for 2 games a season and put Celtic fans in a safer position in the stadium. But they didn't offer that, and they don't want us there, and we don't want them there. As much as it would be better for a spectacle, Rangers started it, Rangers have continued it, and that message really needs to get put out in the mainstream media.
Yep.
I would totally agree with that, and that's where I think perhaps with the article, if anybody's not read it, it's on the Celtic blog. James put it up today. It seems like something might be in the works with that, so we might hear a statement sooner rather than later, guys. So we shall wait and see. So last subject tonight, boys. After all that, I forgot there's actually some football this weekend. League Cup defence begins away to Rugby Park, the hallowed plastic turf of Rugby Park. Best pies in the land, worst playing surface, it has to be said. But what's your thoughts, Ross? Do you foresee, some fringe players like Stephen Welsh getting the nod? And just sort of what you your predictions for the game.
Well, listen, I've advocated Stephen Welsh in this podcast, but I'm not having him in the team with a moon boot on. No danger. But hey, no, listen, the surface will play a big factor. Rangers have went there. I was going to say they struggled. They didn't struggle. They got beat. For a cup tie away from home, listen, you don't want to. It's not easy. It's not going to be easy at Rugby Park. Although you say that on paper, it isn't easy because of all the things that you're up against, including the surface, and you're not making an excuse. But Celtic could go there on Sunday and win by 3, 4, 5, or Kilmarnock could be stuffy, make it difficult. Celtic could have a bit of an off day, and it could be a really difficult tie. But I'm expecting Celtic to go there and win the game. Of course I am. Even we're going to have to play with. I don't think Alistair Johnson's ready for this match, although he's back in training. We're going to have to go there and play the game with a makeshift defence. We've got 2 new centre halves in. Oh well. Well, it won't be a makeshift defence, but it'll be a new defence, which comes with its trepidation, if you like. But again, we'll probably have a different midfield because Hatate's out. But that squad should still be strong enough, whoever comes into the team, to go and win at Kilmarnock, and I expect a win.
Good man. And what about yourself, Stephen? Would you say full strength, or do you expect some changes, and how you think the game will pan out?
I'm pretty much thinking like Ross there. I mean, we all watched the Kilmarnock game when we were juiced up, and like you said, some people it was brilliant, wasn't it? I think the celebration for that defeat was louder than us celebrating the Celtics win. But no, as you said,
got the first experience of my fist pumps every 2 minutes. Every time
your fist pumps, but I think you look at it. You look at it. It's a tough place. We know as well in terms of the surface, and that can come into to play there. But I think for us, I mean, and this is maybe just a stupid point, but it's valid in my head. The likes of Lagerbielke and the Rocky, they've played on plastic 4G surfaces in the Polish leagues and Swedish leagues. They have them there because of the weather and stuff, so they'll be well versed at that kind of surface. I think like you, it could be a game of two issues. It could be stuffy. We'll have to grind it out. I think there's a few people in the chat who say that. Or like last year, the first 30 minutes would totally blow them away and win quite comfortably. So I'm expecting a good, tough game. I think McInnes has got the recruitment at Kilmarnock. The very kind of physical players, athletic players, maybe not easy on the eye, but they get stuck in. A bit like his old Aberdeen team. I think he's trying to kind of model that in the Kilmarnock at Rugby Park. But I'm expecting a good kind of competitive game, and then to kind of set us up for the League Cup run, hopefully. And maybe the likes of Yang to come in to start, maybe Kyogo, Maeda, I don't know, maybe Awada coming in, Home coming in. Good opportunity to try out a few different players, and I'd be excited to see that as well.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed, mate.
Let's not forget. No, I was just going to say, let's not forget, Kilmarnock should have had a penalty in the semi-final last year.
Yeah, good. The media
let's get the pressure on the ref.
Jesus, man.
Unbelievable.
Wow.
Listen, if there was the column inches given to all the decisions that went against us last year, we'd be here till the next Game of Thrones book would be written before we get to the end of that. But enough said about that, the better. But no, that kind of, I'm the same, boys. For fingers crossed. But they'll say there will be a few changes, some forced, some perhaps just a bit of rotation. But hopefully, come Monday, names in the hat for the quarter-final draw. So here's something. I'll take a lovely hassle-free 2-0 settle for that right now, let me tell you. But in terms of the subjects, boys, that's us for tonight. Sorry, Stephen.
Before we end, this one kind of important thing to touch upon, Ross. The Super Six, if I bring up the leaderboard here on the podcast, we'll have Alistair Jack first place, Kevin Gallagher, Bethany Brannan, Phil Tomlinson, Kieran, Mark Robertson, Jamie McElduff, Jamie Latimer, and Ewan Cheshire making up the top 9. So again, get your predictions in early, get them done tonight, get them done. When is it by, Ross?
3 o'clock in the morning. Get your predictions in for this weekend. I've done mine. Never forgot this time.
And like Anthony said at the start, the Stephen Coulthard, we've ordered the T-shirts. They'll be coming hopefully within 3 to 4 weeks, and we'll get it posted to you, buddy, as soon as we possibly can. So there you go, your Super 6 update.
Perfect. That's good. Thanks for reminding me, Stephen. I'll need to remember and start doing that at the start of the show. But no, as I say, at least you've given everyone the update. And as I say, and if anyone wants to join the league, I think you can still do it. You say you've only missed one game, so very quickly you can pick up. All the details are at the bottom of the screen there. But that brings us to the end of proceedings tonight, boys. As I expected, it was a lively one. But have you enjoyed it?
Brilliant. I love it, man. I love it lively. I love it when we disagree, because I think to sum it up perfectly, if we all agreed, it'd be over in 20 minutes and we'd be sleeping. So you have to have that. I think. Different opinions. It was very enjoyable.
Absolutely.
I've enjoyed it. Good.
Yeah, so it's always good being on with you boys. Absolutely. And thanks again to everybody for watching. And getting involved in the discussion. We appreciate all the comments, and hopefully I think Stephen's managed to bring up the vast majority of them. So we hope you've enjoyed being involved in the chat tonight as well. And if you like what you're seeing and hearing, just hit that wee subscribe button and the little bell notification next to it, and you'll get a little update every time we're going live, because we don't just have our Monday and Friday shows. We'll obviously throughout the course of the season be doing the Sunday spin-offs, and of course we've got the Champions League draw, etc. coming up as well. So plenty to look forward to on the Endless Celts. But in terms of tonight, that is us, and I'll hand you over to Stephen for the famous send-off. But thanks again, folks. Cheers.
As Anthony said, I want to echo everyone joining us and getting involved in the comments. And until Monday, stay well and keep safe. Hail, hail.